So awesome to see all your faces. It is really beautiful. And thank you all for coming. Does it sound echoey at all? Does it sound a little bit?
Is it echoing for you?
It's echoing for me a bit. Okay. Well, Naomi shared a document with me that she wanted me to share with you all, so I will do so. And this is something that came to Naomi back in 2012, May 25th, 2012. And it came back on her heart, so I was going to share it. She shared it with me. It says, "The winds of change are blowing hard across this land, bringing forth God's judgment, as he separates and divides all who will stand up for his holiness and justice. Taking a stand for Israel and God's people will require laying down your life. God wants all of you, nothing else will do. On which side will you stand? There is no middle ground." The word from the Lord given to Naomi Moan on May 25th, 2012. Thanks for sharing. Father, we just, again, thank you for this time. Thank you for this place. Thank you for the opportunity to gather one with another. Father, we just ask that you be in our midst. Help us, Father, to open up your word and learn new things. But more than just learning, Father, help us to find ways to grow closer to you, grow closer to getting better at loving one another, and growing as a community, and in our interactions with all those in the world we interact with as we leave this place. In Yeshua's name we pray. So this parashah is technically my parashah. So if you do a bar mitzvah, you come up with whatever the parashah is for that day that you've been turning 13 as a boy, or they say 12 for the girl. But so I didn't have a bar mitzvah, but you can go on this website, and there's several different websites, but here's one, yeshiva.co website, and you can find what your bar mitzvah reading would have been and what date it would have been. And so I put in my info, and it comes up with Parashah Balak, which is this week. So it would have been back in 1988, which said that something about me. I've been here a minute, so hopefully a few more minutes. So it's but it's kind of interesting. Some people think that maybe your parashah says something about you. I'm not sure if that's true, but it is just kind of interesting to see what you would have at that age had to get up in front of a group of people and give a message about, which probably would have been extremely daunting at age 13 for myself. It's gotten a little easier, but still can be a little funky. We push through. This one has always had a little bit of a special meaning for me. So I always kind of, whenever it comes around on the calendar every year, it kind of just, I don't know, it sits with me a little more than it maybe others. So I do want to give a little recap where we are right now. So last week we had this 38-year gap in the parashah, and then it got to basically right when they're coming into the Holy Land. And they came up to the kingdom of Edom here, and they asked, "Can we cross through your land?" And Edom said, "No." They said, "We wouldn't take anything, we just follow the road." And they said, "Nope." So they had to go all the way around, all the way down by the Red Sea again, and back up. And they came up around Moab here, and then they ended up coming in right here along the Arnon rivers on this border here, crossed it. And this is where they battled Sihon and Og in this area and took possession of this land from the Amorites, which were Canaanites. So if you remember, Edom is descendants of Esau, and Moab and Ammon are descendants of Lot. So these are all familial relations in the Semitic line, where the Canaanites occupied all these areas, and they were doing things that were not pleasing to God, and they were not connected to the people of God. And so God wanted to drive them out and give the land back to the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So that's where we are in the story. So they come into the land. They're right here, kind of near the border, right about to cross into the Jordan River. Aaron, remember, has passed away last week. Miriam passed away last week. Moses is coming toward the end of his life, and Joshua is about to take over. So that's where we are right now. But then Balak, the king of Moab, he gets pretty nervous about this big group of people coming in. And they're like right on his border. So Moab is here. They're kind of here in the plains of Moab. And so he sends up to Balaam of Beor and Pethor by the Euphrates River, the text says, which I never really thought about that much, but that's a long way away. So Israel is like here. So here's the Dead Sea. Here's the Sea of Galilee. So Israel kind of fits in this little gap right here. They had to go all the way up to here, to the Euphrates River, where they think Thor was. There's still a site there called Thor, and so that's not just a quick distance. They had to, and you didn't have a car or anything. You had to walk or ride a horse or maybe a donkey to get back up all the way there. So they had to go there, and we hear they go there twice, right? So they go there at least twice. They come back. They didn't know. They go back again. So this is probably a couple, weeks and weeks of journeying through hot desert places, high mountains and stuff. So it wasn't just a quick, we'll go grab this guy and ask for things. So we come to this guy Balaam, who's this complicated figure, if you will. He, it's interesting because he seems like he's communicating with God. He seems like a holy man because he can hear things from God and he can communicate with God. And he says these blessings, which are beautiful eventually when he gets over the mountains and looks over them, including with the Matohu, which we sang and chanted today, is part from that. And so I was reading something today. The rabbis almost put the Matohu as part of the Shema, which would have been something said at least 3 times every day, but they decided to leave that out. But they thought it was such a beautiful sentiment that was expressed by this non-Jewish person. And then he was actually pretty much seen as evil besides this. So everywhere else in the Bible where Balaam pops up, he's seen as an evil man, full of greed, full of pride. And so he's, like I said, complicated is the best way I could describe him. We see all these different verses beyond the story today. One of them is in Joshua 13, and it talks about the sons of Israel also killed Balaam, the son of Beor, and they call him the diviner, which is not a positive term about him at all. That's definitely a negative thing. And they kill him with the sword, and that's like something that was seen as good to do. We also in Joshua, later in Joshua 24, it says, "But I was not willing to listen to Balaam, so he had to bless you, and I saw you from his safety." My angle's weird here. I'm going to try to pivot here. So, and then 2 Peter 2, we see several references in the apostolic scriptures about Balaam. And so 2 Peter 2 is one of them. False prophets are abandoning the right way. They have gone astray, having followed the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved the reward of unrighteousness, but he received the rebuke for his offense. For a mute donkey, speaking with a human voice, restrained the insanity of the prophets. In this scripture, too, it also talks about Lucifer and his rebellion, and the same kind of things of pride and thinking that you are better than God and that you know more than God and can control God. It was some of the same sort of themes of what was going on with Balaam and what Lucifer did. So I'll create that. All right. A couple more references in the apostolic text for Jude. Technically one, but there's only one chapter in Jude, so it's Jude 11. Ungodly people is referring to earlier. Woe to them, for they have gone the way of Cain, and for pay they have given themselves up to the error of Balaam and perished in the rebellion with Korah. So he's associated with some not great people in the Bible, not great scenarios. And then the last final one in Revelation 2, it's talking about the church of Pergamum here, but I have a few things against you because you have some there who hold to the teaching of Balaam, who kept teaching Balak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols and commit sexual immorality. So you too have some who in the same way hold the teaching of the Nicolaitans. I looked at who the Nicolaitans were. That was a heresy, they was called it, held that God's grace allowed Christians the freedom to ignore moral laws, especially sexual immorality and the eating of food sacrificed to idols. And they actually saw those were good things to do. Kind of, they said, because we have this freedom in Messiah, we need to do these things to show that we have freedom. But it's pretty wild, right? It's not how we should. We do have freedom, but we shouldn't live in such a way that we're just, putting our thumb in God's eye, essentially, what He's called us to do. So. Say that again?
So you're essentially sacrificing on the cross every time you do that.
Right. Yeah, Paul talks about it. We have this freedom. Should we do this? He's like, God forbid, right? We should never do this. So Balaam is really seen as this picture of pride and just overwhelming, thinking he's better. Some different things that I was finding on Balaam and his picture of pride. He really had spiritual arrogance. He prided himself on his proximity to the divine. He boasted that he hears God's speech and knows the knowledge of the Most High. But interestingly, this intellectual knowledge didn't really translate into a humble heart and an actual relationship with God. And we see this still to this day, right? Intellectual knowledge doesn't necessarily make you closer to God or translate into into a relationship with God. And often can go the opposite way. And I think Balaam is a picture of that. And we have to be cautious for this stuff too. He was very into status. He reveled in being summoned by kings in power. The rabbis talk a lot about this. Like, he didn't go the first time because they didn't send enough money and enough big delegations. So he sent them back and made them bring more important people and more money to come and just get more riches. So his pride made him susceptible to compromising his values. Even though he heard from God, no, you shouldn't go. He was like, well, now they're bringing more stuff. I think I want to go. God was like, well, you can kind of do what you want, but it wasn't really what he wanted. But it ended up being, it's just, like I said, it's this complicated relationship back and forth. You think he's doing bad, but he's doing good, and so it kind of goes both ways. Yeah, this illusion of control. He was driven by his own will. He continually sought to manipulate or negotiate with God. He feigned obedience while secretly hoping to bend the will to his own desires, God's will, for wealth and prestige. And you're getting into dangerous ground when you're trying to just bend God to do what you want. I think usually when we try to get what we want, it doesn't go very well. God's plans are often much more what our body and our soul actually needs and wants. And so it gets dangerous when we start thinking we know what's better than God knows for us. And then we get this wild scene where God uses this donkey to humble Balaam. And the donkey starts speaking to him, and I think it's just remarkable in the text that he doesn't go, wait a minute, like, you're talking to me? I mean, if animals start talking to me, I think that I wouldn't just start talking back instantly. I would be like, hold up, what's going on there? But his pride led to this severe spiritual blindness. He's on this journey to Moab, and his stubborn will caused him to beat his donkey because he couldn't see his angel of the Lord standing in the path with a drawn sword. He was blinded by his pride and his just focus to go forward. But the donkey, who was this humble creature, he could see this angel, and God opened the donkey's mouth, it says, to rebuke the prophet, and the animal proved more spiritually perceptive than the renowned seer. So I think this incident is like one incident where the proud becomes a little bit humble, because the donkey is probably one of the lowliest animals you could imagine as far as of humility. It's not like you're riding this amazing horse, even a mule, which is large. A donkey's little, and pretty humble, and looks goofy, and makes goofy sounds. And so, but I think it's a really neat picture, because God regularly uses a donkey, which is, in the Bible, you get something like 80 references to donkeys, which is quite a few. So God seems to like donkeys. And so we see a couple different instances. When Abraham's going to the binding of Isaac, the ultimate test of faith, there's a donkey carrying the wood and the different things they're going to need. And then Moses uses a donkey when he's leaving Midian, going back to Egypt. He uses it to help his wife and kids move back up to Egypt. And then obviously we know Zechariah prophesied the Messiah would arrive lowly on a donkey. And then Yeshua obviously fulfilled this when he came into Jerusalem, chose a donkey to ride upon in Israel on Palm Sunday. It's interesting, the rabbis say this was the exact same donkey, these three incidences. It was some sort of magical donkey. It seems a little far-fetched. But they said these two they said were the same donkey, and this one they say hasn't come yet, because they don't acknowledge that Yeshua was the Messiah, obviously. But they said that when he does come, that donkey's coming back. Maybe. We'll see. So Balaam gets down there, and then 3 times Balak asks him to curse Israel, but 3 times he blesses them. So they come into the land. Moab is down here. Israel's kind of taken over this land from Sichon and Og. And then we have these 3 different sites on these 3 different mountains overlooking this. There's the Jordan River flowing into the Dead Sea. So they're kind of, Israel's camped here. So they think these are the 3 sites. There's some question marks on some of these 2. They don't know exactly. So anyway, but yeah, so he comes there, but instead of these curses, obviously he's like, God forces blessings out of him. So again, he's coming to want to curse Israel. He wants to get paid. He wants to do his job, but he's forced to bless them. So he's ultimately blessing Israel because God forced him to, but his heart never truly submitted. His pride and greed, often called the error of Balaam, led him to advise King Balak to, but later, the only way he's able to get to the Israelites is through telling them, he tells Balak to send his women to seduce the men. And that's the next incident we see at the end of this parashah. We'll read that today after we get done with this, where the men are seduced by these women of Moab, women of Midian, coming up and partnering too. And so he has to kind of find a workaround. And it ends up being somewhat successful. He causes damage to Israel, but obviously it's not in the end successful. It doesn't destroy Israel. These curses that he supposedly was brought in to give, he's not able to ever deliver. He's only able to bless. And then we see, like we read before, the scripture, apostolic scripture remembers him as the symbol of somebing willing to compromise his faith for personal gain. He was just, he wanted to do these curses, but he's unable to. And then later we see he's killed by the sword. So Joshua and the army eventually prevail over him. But he causes harm. He creates this plague, and then finally stopped by Pinchas stabbing the man and woman through. I don't know about that later today too. I wanted to read this section, it's a couple of slides long, but it's from C.S. Lewis talking about pride, and I thought this was really good. So it says, there is one vice of which no man in the world is free, which everyone in the world loathes when he sees it in someone else, and of which hardly any people, except Christians, ever imagine that they aren't guilty themselves. I've heard people admit that they are bad-tempered, or that they cannot keep their heads about girls or drink, or even that they are cowards. I do not think I have ever heard anyone who is not a Christian accuse himself of this vice. The vice I'm talking about is pride or self-conceit. And the virtue opposite in Christian morality is called humility. It was through pride that the devil became the devil, like I mentioned before. Pride leads to every other vice. It is the complete anti-God state of mind. The more pride one had, the more one disliked pride in others. In fact, if you want to find out how proud you are, the easiest way is to ask yourself, how much do I dislike it when other people snub me, or refuse to take any notice of me, or shove their oar in, which I didn't know that was an English expression, give their opinion when it was not asked for, essentially. It's like giving you their advice, or patronize me or show off. The point is that each person's pride is in competition with everyone else's pride. It's because I wanted to be the big noise at the party that I am so annoyed that someone else is being the big noise. Pride is essentially competitive. It is competitive by its very nature. While the other vices are competitive only, so to speak, by accident, pride gets no pleasure out of having something, only of having more of it than the next man. We say that people are proud of being rich or clever or good looking, but they are not. They are proud of being richer or clever or better looking than others. If everyone else became equally rich or clever or good looking, there would be nothing to be proud about. It is the comparison that makes you proud, the pleasure of being above the rest. Christians are right. It is pride which has been the chief cause of misery in every nation and every family since the world began. Other vices may sometimes bring people together. You may find good fellowship and jokes and friendliness among drunken people or unchaste people, but pride always means enmity. It is enmity, and not only enmity between man and man, but enmity to God. In God, you come up against something which is in every respect immeasurably superior to yourself. Unless you know God as that, and therefore know yourself as nothing in comparison, you do not know God at all. As long as you are proud, you cannot know God. A proud man is always looking down on things and people. And of course, as long as you are looking down, you cannot see something that is above you. Really powerful. So then I came across this sin of pride quiz to ask yourself, because pride is the trickiest sin, right? Like when you think you're getting a hold of pride, then that's the opposite. Like you're being prideful, right? I'm proud that I'm getting a hold of my pride. Like it's an it's an oxymoron, and it's a fallacy. You get stuck in this loop. So I thought this was kind of interesting to kind of go through this, and I definitely find that I have not mastered this, and I doubt any of you have, and so it's something we're all working on, right, as we try closer to who God is. So the feedback test. 1, do you have defensive reactions when receiving correction or constructive criticism? Right? It's not when someone's like giving you like legitimate constructive criticism. Are you able to take that? It's hard, right? You know, it's like you want to be like defensive, right? Like, oh, that's not true. That's not that way. But often if someone's going out of their way to say something to you, and especially if they're doing it with a heart of love and a heart to kind of help, then we should take a moment to listen. So just being mean-spirited, maybe not, but often, you know, others can see us better than we can see ourselves. It's hard to look at yourself often. Conversation test. You have a tendency to dominate conversations, dismiss others' opinions, or always steer the focus back to oneself. You know, I see this in other people, not me, right? But no, it's true. Like, do we really listen when other people are talking and really try to think about what they're saying, or you just think about the next thing you're going to say? It's easy to do that, and it's hard to really listen. So it's a skill, it's a practice. Third one, the gratitude test. Do you fail to acknowledge the help or contributions of others, leading to a feeling of entitlement and ungratefulness? I always come back to gratitude is like the preventative mental health discipline. The more you're grateful, they say you can't be grateful and experience any negative emotions at the exact same time. So we need to really spend time in gratitude. I think it's a discipline that takes some time to think about all the blessings we do have. And lastly, the superiority and envy test. Do you evaluate your worth by comparing yourself to others, leading to either disdain for those deemed inferior or envy of those deemed superior? Yeah, right? It's easy to go to this place. And it's hard to really, the heart of God is that every single other person is built in his image, is made in his image. And it's hard to necessarily see that God is dwelling in another, can be dwelling in another individual, or they're made in the image of God and deserve love and respect. It's easy to get kind of in a place where you think you're better than them, or you get jealous of those who have more. And so these are all disciplines, I think, to take a moment and to self-evaluate and try to get better in these areas. And I know it's something I need to work on. Others too, maybe get to work on these two a little bit. Probably not. You're probably not perfect. I've surrounded myself with perfect people, which is awesome. So again, like how to work to overcome. So I think again, gratitude. Cultivate a daily habit of gratitude, acknowledging the things that God has given us, the support and help by others. Honestly seek out and accepting honest feedback from trusted peers and those you respect. Right? So finding the people in your life that you can ask, hey, how am I doing here? You see that I could do something better? Call me out when I'm being ridiculous. Who knows I get there. Participate in quiet acts of service that do not bring public praise or recognition. Right? If we're doing things of service just to be seen, then that's pride. If you're doing it just because it's a good thing to do and God's calling you to do it, just do it quietly. Right? Be like the person who brought their offering quietly to the temple with trumpets and shofars and blasts. And then prayer, obviously. Pray that God will expose these areas and help you overcome it. So, those are kind of the main things I wanted to bring up. But I also wanted just to finish with a Bible verse, because I think it comes back to God will find ways to humble you. I mean, like when you're young, you think you got everything, and you have your health. When things start to slip a little, and you have challenges in different places. So I go back to Paul's thorn in the flesh verse, right? In 2 Corinthians 12. He said, because of the extraordinary greatness of the revelation, for this reason, to keep myself from exalting myself, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me and keep me from exalting myself. So they cried. Considering this, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might leave me, and he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is perfected in weakness. I love that. I don't know it, but I like it. My grace is sufficient for you. My power is perfected in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, I will rather boast about my weaknesses, so that the power of Messiah may dwell in me. Therefore, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in distresses, in persecutions and difficulties on behalf of Messiah. But when I am weak, then I am strong. I haven't got there yet. I don't know if I delight in those things yet. I think it's something that I aspire to get to. So, anyone have any thoughts on any of this? Lord, yeah, He really does give us opportunities. Like, yeah, it's a challenge. Life is not easy. No one gets through it unscathed. So,
Nobody said it would be easy.
yeah, no, there's no gift beginning that's going to be easy journey for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you all. Yeah, so we're going to circle